Hello, beautiful, amazing, fantastic world, and you, wonderful, wonderful individual personality, human being you. Today, I would love to speak about consistency in uplifting and kind, gentle, and warm forces and intentions. When you are consistent in, trying to behave and feel and think as a more ennobled and well-developed human being in relation to who you were yesterday, as just to use the relation. So to be able to grow and to dedicate yourself to these forces, the forces where the intention is undeniably clean, because you constantly check with yourself what is your intention, and also that it is you that chooses intention, and certain things can affect us so that we become a little confused and might end up choosing something in that confusion that was not necessarily what was the most optimal for us at the moment. But these straying a little from the path is also part of the path, as long as we collect ourselves and come back again to the consistency. For we do have certain periods and certain cycles where we pay more amounts of karma than otherwise, because we do have more life force and inner strength to spare. They do kind of monitor that with us. They rarely kick us when we are already down. That is, unless of course it is about our attitude towards them and towards karma and suffering and so on. For by holding oneself sturdy and strong and responsible for one's own inner being and what comes out of that inner being, we allow to bring out more harmonious karma results that in the future might lead to something more beautiful, instead of constantly feeling that we are living constantly in the red in our karmic debit account. For yes, we kind of are in the red, but as long as we show our consistent dedication to development and to every human being, every human individual, they will grace us. Grace is, remember, this earth does not look it is very chaotic at this time. Until every individual one of us wake up so that we can actually work towards harmonious coexistence and cooperation with each other and this development, the higher worlds and so on, we will constantly be wasting our life force and attention and intentions on silly things often. Now, that is not to say that we are meant to become fully ascetic, and we are not meant to become fully hedonistic either. It is that perfect balance in between where you hold, for if you go full ascetic right now, it is destructive and not very healthy for your being. It has to be done in increments, so it is so sturdy and so thorough within your being that it should not become a problem. And that is, you dip your toe in, and then your foot in, and then your leg in, then your thigh, and then you slowly but surely submerge yourself. If you throw yourself out, you will end up in shock. You will go right back up to the ocean from the ocean again. That is serious, though. If you're not prepared for certain impulses, they will not come to us. For if we try to force it, it speaks for itself. We don't have the proper insight and proper understanding of development to maneuver by ourselves alone without the proper inspiration and impulses from the divine. For when you look towards the future, who do you think either show you or do not show you based on how far, well, our clairvoyant abilities has come in the first place. The future, it is the future that shows us the future, and that is, well, our higher selves. It is us in the future that shows us the future, the higher worlds. Of course, we have become more of a higher world in the future than we are now. Of course, this is, but we can only abstractly think about this, but you get a certain feeling of joy and a certain feeling of responsibility when you think about it. Because every action, every thought, every feeling we think and feel and do now is a directory towards the future. So for every action you do now, the future will shape itself and it will meet you. But different types of futures will meet you based on your actions today. You see, it is pretty obvious when you think about it. Your actions today becomes tomorrow's future. Your actions yesterday become today's future. Today's action becomes future. So what we focus on now, what we dedicate our cause to, have a certain consistency and attention and single-minded purpose towards a certain, it is a very objective goal. You need to have as much of reality as included in it, but also see the future and all the streams that might have some demonic influences and so on have been cleansed, and we are harmoniously and, well, have a soul understanding for each other, a soul compassion, a soul connection. So it doesn't matter what kind of clothing you put your belief in. For the highest Lord is there no matter what. But it is depending what type of, for what comes out of that being has everything to say. For most human beings understand what morality is. It really is not arbitrary, by no means. It is seriously, since Plato introduced the rudiments of morality. And over time, this seed has slowly but surely grown, so we became prepared for the Christ we needed to have a certain moral level, in a sense. And after the Christ came, this seed has strengthening more and more until now we can feel pain or enjoyment, pleasure, when we see good or evil, or beauty and ugliness, as I call it. For you have that, it is something inbuilt in everyone, but it is about, do you squash it? If we squash it, you can literally remove any sensation of guilt and of rights and wrongs. It is not that difficult. Okay, it is that difficult when you have awakened it, and when you know what it is, when you know it is about your soul. And we don't mess with that. We don't tamper with that. For if we only live here, our soul is not in our head. Our soul covers our whole being, and it is especially prominent in our middle man. And most people don't dare go down there because it's so intense sometimes. You know, there's personally, I find it. We need to go down there. You need to go into your own being to become acquainted with yourself. If not, you are living on a one-way track, and you kind of only absorb, kind of a little like you constantly consume, but there is nothing coming out of you that is of a conscious, self-chosen, disciplined deed, you know? By becoming awake to your own inner being, by truly awakening to the life that you have been bestowed, the life that you have within you. Allowing yourself to anchor yourself within your own inner being, body, so you can start sensing and feeling and, well, partaking in your own body. For if we become feverish, if it becomes too much for what we are able and capable to handle, we become, as I said, feverish and wish to go outside of our body, kind of in a spiritual panic. And on the other hand, you can turn yourself completely off and just ignore. So it is all the balance, never losing oneself. The awake, conscious, and having the responsibility for one's own being in a conscious state. For when your spirit and soul is conscious within you, you have the sun with you. And this sun burns away any dark spirits that might try to come close to it. It becomes transformed. It burns, and it's not that we fight them in any way. It is a natural occurrence of what would happen if we tried to fly into the sun. We would... And the lower realms, or the dark spirits, they cannot truly pervade the light. Because the light is what creates the darkness, the shadow. It cannot live without it, truly. Which is also kind of why Sorath, the sun demon, will dissolve after this cosmic cycle. He is not needed anymore then. For Sorath was made, he was literally created, his task was literally to become the adversary of the Christ. Although not his equal, by no means. For the difference in hierarchical rank, should we say, is literally like an ant and an elephant. If we are going to even compare something in size. Okay, maybe an ant and a blue whale, actually. That would be the biggest I can put it. For he came from the Godhead. He's the Word of God made flesh. He is part of the threefold Godhead. And that is, even the seraphim, the first hierarchy, is his forces, is his hosts. That speaks for itself, really, doesn't it? He is here with us, in our life, in our love, in our gentleness, for compassion, forgiveness, warmth, the love for humanity, the love for an individual, the love for God, the gratitude. He is very distinct in his being, but he is also pretty disciplined. But not disciplined out of training. He is disciplined as a matter of course, for he is the highest. It's his part of his being. And we can become more and more alike him, more and more macrocosmic the more we embrace him and get to know him. For when we know him, when we understand his being, we can start to, well, first we need to imitate in a certain sense. For imitation, through imitation, you actually can come into an understanding of things. That is how the first occult truths was passed from master to teacher. It was through a more or less non-verbal transference of information. In inclusion of communication, of course. There are many mysteries to life that is far too enjoyable to explore, to give up, and to just lay down our swords right now. It is all about we live till we take our last breath. If we believe that we can stop living now and just, now I don't need to think about anything anymore. That is when you died. That is when your inner being just... But when you have the oomph to live daily, you wake up and you thank God for, and say good morning, and you bring yourself to a certain state of reverence, a state of devotion, but consciously, and also so that you can actually go do something and practice and dedicate yourself to something. It is not so that you become, ecstatically in a meditative haze. We are always conscious. Because if we were not conscious, we would not absorb or remember anything. For if we go into trances or mediumships or certain things like that, we go below a certain threshold, not above a certain threshold. So we will meet certain beings, yes, and they might be enormously intelligent and clever, but they are not of the hierarchy. When we are consciously channeling, when we are letting them through our being consciously, first and foremost, you can feel what beings there are. You are in control of who will come and who will go. On the second is, well, they are healing to us when we are conscious, and they teach us at the same time, for it allows for memory imprints. It allows for absorption of memories in a conscious and awake way. That is where we can reflect when we look back, so we can learn more. You cannot do that when you are in a trance, when you are down in a certain half-sleep state. But you can in a conscious. And it is fully possible to have that mediumship state in a conscious state, allowing to have direct conscious communion with them. Of course it's possible. Why shouldn't it be? It's just as possible as with the mediumship, But we should consciously strive for this. So we know what beings we meet, what beings we cooperate with, what beings we choose to listen to, and have feeling the morals, feeling the love, the compassion that comes from them, or the lack thereof. For we need to have a passive resistance to ugliness and evil. That just means it's kind of like you just stand there and people are shooting bows and throwing axes and when you just stand there. We take it, we transform it. And that is how we strengthen our own inner being, by not retaliating. For if we retaliate, we fell for the temptation. It is about holding an inner strength. Easier said than done, but it is worth the cause. It is worth the mastery. So I think I will leave you with this today. Thank you so much for listening to me. You beautiful, beautiful human. You spirit, you. May you be protected, guided, blessed and loved by Father, Holy Spirit, Christ, Michael, angel masters of all, ancestors from every incarnation. And may you be provided for with all that you need to survive, live and thrive, being creative and inspirational, and a good example and a healing force in this world, so others can do the same if they choose to in freedom. Thank you so much. Love you. Goodbye.